The ability to hold politicians accountable is the bedrock of American democracy, and Donald Trump's seemingly unique ability to avoid it is a key reason that democracy advocates are so worried right now. Perhaps Trump's most consistent tactic in avoiding accountability is so simplistic that it's hard to believe that it actually works. And that tactic is just simply taking every allegation, investigation, or pointed question to him and calling it a witch hunt.
It's a witch hunt. That's all it is.
The entire thing has been a witch hunt, and there is no collusion between certainly myself and my campaign.
Let me tell you, Putin went through a hell of a lot with me. He went through a phony witch hunt where they used him and Russia. There's been no collusion. There's been no obstruction. It's all a made-up fantasy. It's a witch hunt. Fake news and the Russian witch hunt.
I think that we're being hurt very badly by the I would call it the witch hunt. I would call it the rigged witch hunt.
That was, by the way, all just Donald Trump's first term. Trump's use of the phrase actually predates his presidency. Back in 2013, he referred to a lawsuit against the now-defunct Trump University as a liberal witch hunt led by his political foes. He later paid $25 million to settle that lawsuit. This past week, CNN reported that the Pentagon's Inspector General completed a months-long review of the Secretary of Defense, or what he calls the Secretary of War, Pete Hegseth's use of the Signal app to discuss sensitive military operations, and has submitted its findings to Hegseth for review, which is typical. It should then become mostly public, but first, the Defense Secretary gets to see it. MSNBC has not independently verified that information. But you'll remember the Signalgate scandal in which the defense secretary discussed a pending airstrike on a Signal chat that accidentally included the editor-in-chief of The Atlantic. Now, while details of that review have not been publicly released, what we do know is Hegseth has already labeled the internal investigation, you guessed it, a witch hunt. And the president has got his back.
Hegseth is doing a great job. He had nothing to do with this. Hegseth. How do you bring Hegseth into it? He had nothing to do. Look, it's all a witch hunt.
It's all just a witch hunt. It is such an unsophisticated deflection to respond to any criticism or feedback or investigation or question by saying it's fake. It's only a half step removed from I'm rubber, you're glue. But much like that schoolyard comeback, this one's been particularly effective, probably in large part because the rhetoric is backed by a true disregard for rules, for norms, and even the law. Joining me now, Bradley Moss, a national security attorney who specializes in federal employment and security clearance law. I'm also joined by Michael Missel, who was the Inspector General for the Department of Veterans Affairs until he was fired by President Trump in January, along with at least 17 fellow inspectors general from across the government. They've filed a lawsuit challenging their terminations. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Michael, let me just start with you. I don't think Donald Trump should be calling anything a witch hunt. Accountability is the bedrock of our democracy. But an inspector general's report of something that the Defense Department did, it's built into our structure. It's by definition not a witch hunt. It's actually an internal investigation into what was done.
That's correct. When Congress created the inspector generals almost 50 years ago, they did so because of the abuses in the executive branch that came out of Watergate. And what they did is they set it up so that the inspectors generals would be independent, so that they can conduct their work without any undue influence, political or otherwise, and they could do their work based on the facts, be able to do the work the way they thought it was best. And certainly while I was the Inspector General at the Department of Veterans Affairs, we helped the VA improve in so many ways. We issued 2,500 reports with about 10,000 recommendations, and had a monetary impact of about $35 billion. So inspectors general do their work. They do it independently, but they do it fairly, and they do it thoroughly, and they get it right.
Brad, you end up defending people who are whistleblowers, really. I mean, it's a weird term, but actually, it's central, right? It's the idea that there are people who are on the inside who have particular information and a unique ability to hold the government to account for wrongdoing. When you devalue these people? When they're always threatened, first of all. I mean, there are very few stories of whistleblowers who actually come out better on the other end. But when you devalue this, what's the net effect on governance and democracy?
Less transparency, less oversight, and less accountability. The very essence of inspectors general, of lawful whistleblowers, is that they speak truth to power. They allow the process to show where mistakes were made, where possible criminality occurred. When you remove that, when you take out that accountability, you return, as my colleague was just saying, to the excesses of Watergate, to the abuses of power, to the idea that a certain group of people, and in particular a certain office holder, the president, is above the law, cannot be scrutinized, cannot be held accountable. Only other people can be investigated. And that's the biggest issue here is Donald Trump doesn't necessarily have a problem with whistleblowers if they work for him. He promoted all kinds of whistleblowers during the Biden administration. He loved the WikiLeaks leaks of Clinton's emails during the 2016 campaign. He loved that, because he went against somebody else. But when it investigates him, it investigates his friends, it investigates his cabinet officials, then it's all a witch hunt.
So this is an interesting point, Mike, because of the inspectors general who were removed, some were appointed under Democrats, some were appointed under Republicans, some are career people, some were appointed by Donald Trump himself. It's the accountability here that Donald Trump is trying to do away with.
That's correct. I served under both Democratic and Republican administrations. I worked with both Democrats and Republicans in Congress. It didn't care to me who was leading the administration or Congress. What I cared about was helping the department improve and doing our work that could have the greatest impact so that veterans and taxpayers benefited from our work. And I think we were very successful, as were other IGs at the other agencies. And it's really critical that they be allowed to remain independent, because once political or other influences get in the way, then the public would not be able to count and trust on the work of the inspectors general.
So Brad, there's Mike's work and the Inspector General's work, which sort of goes on in the background. The public doesn't hear about it much. There's your work that becomes a little more public because sometimes it involves lawsuits. But there's a Congress here. They actually can fix this problem. They can actually take responsibility. They can say on a bipartisan basis, on behalf of every American voter, we can enforce the idea that accountability is central to our governance.
You say there's a Congress. I've been watching for 8 months. I'm not quite sure that Congress is there. But yes, in theory, we have a Congress who is supposed to serve as a check on the executive branch. That's why the system was built this way, with the three different branches, the courts serving their role, Congress serving as the check on the executive as well. But with this Congress, what we didn't see in the first Trump administration, but we're seeing it here as he has molded the Republican Party to his will, is that this Congress doesn't care about any of that. This Congress will green light, rubber stamp, whatever the term is you want to use, anything Donald Trump does. They will ignore any abuse of his executive power, including, you think about the tariff fight going up before the Supreme Court. That's a rank abuse of power compared to what Congress actually was supposed to control. This Congress simply doesn't care, because their whole ability to remain in office, their power rests on Donald Trump. And without it, they will lose power.
Mike, part of the problem here is there's a million things going on, many of which drive people to protest in the streets. This doesn't tend to be one of them, because these accountability mechanisms have largely existed in the background. We have, as Americans, known they exist, but most people couldn't name an inspector. No offense to you, you're my favorite inspector general, but most people can't name one, right? They don't know what they do, and you and I have argued that it's valuable work. But it doesn't matter that people don't know what they do, because it's effective and it works in the background. That's what we trusted that government did. Now we're dissolving that, and there's no one to take to the streets because nobody knows who you are and what you did and what money you saved me.
Right. Well, hopefully these kind of programs will help, talking about how important the inspectors general were. I know certainly when I was at VA, we helped the department improve for veterans. There were so many instances. We looked at virtually every program that VA had to make sure veterans got the benefits and services that they deserved and that the taxpayer money was being spent appropriately. And if we lose that concept, that function there, then government's going to suffer, public trust is going to go down, and ultimately the people are going to not be able to get the services from the government that they've deserved and they paid for.
Brad, one might say these are schoolyard taunts, calling everything a witch hunt. But when you become the person who is accused of a witch hunt by the president or the defense secretary, whomever, it causes problems. Causes reputational problems, causes problems in some cases from a security perspective, causes problems if you have to hire a lawyer. Lawyers are expensive, and a whole bunch of lawyers have become unavailable because they won't do this work pro bono. It's a big issue. I mean, I heard somebody telling me that when Donald Trump goes after you, a lawsuit, you can't get a mortgage at that point. Like, these are real problems for real people.
Yeah, no, it's like a scarlet A. You know, you can't do various things. Your personal, professional reputation comes under attack. Just think of what we saw in 2020 where, you know, organizations like Dominion and Smartmatic had to sue to try to reclaim their reputations from the allegations that would come from Donald Trump and his allies. And now that he is the president again, now that he has these unchecked powers that he's utilizing, he can systematically undermine and destroy entire parts of the population's workforce. I mean, think of what all the people who were gutted out of the federal government. Think of him just unilaterally revoking security clearances. Tulsi Gabbard is just having fun, having a ball with it, just revoking clearances left and right for no other reason than I don't like you, you're evil, I don't like your politics, therefore I'm revoking your clearance. Taking away from lawyers, such as people at my firm, who do very specific work on behalf of cleared individuals inside the U.S. government and now can't perform that work. This is the problem. You know, everybody always likes to talk, you know, about the poem from the Holocaust. It's very famous. I'll give you the updated version. It's, they came for the illegal aliens, no one said anything. They came for the bureaucrats, no one said anything. They came for the press and the lawyers, no one said anything. When they came for me, there was no one left.
Yep. Yep. I hope everybody just internalizes that and remembers it, because we're going through it right now. Thanks to both of you and the important work that you both do. Brad Moss is a national security attorney. Mike Missel is a former inspector general for the Department of Veterans Affairs. We'll be right back.